Hey everyone, TND Podcast here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Babymetal record, Metal Resistance. Now, this review you may have already noticed in the time stamp is super long. I'm sorry about that. It is a collaborative review with the one, the only anime critic, otaku gonzo journalist, he labels himself as, Mr. Digibro. And I don't know, whenever I talk to this guy, I feel like we're just talking for 15 minutes, but it ends up being for just a very long time. And we just go into this Babymetal record, and we talk about its pros, its cons, we give a little background on the band, and we just have a good, fun conversation, which is just totally uncut, very casual. So, you know, if you're into some J-pop metal fusions, then kick back, get a snack, relax, just, you know, kind of play this in the background a little bit as we, you know, sort of converse and shoot the shit over this Babymetal magic. And, yeah, we're going to leave it at that. And also a bit of a shirt change, too.
Transition, and here we are, via the magic of the internet, with a co-review of this new baby record with my dude, Digibro. How you doing, man? Thanks for
how you said new baby record is what you said.
Baby record? Oh my god. Sorry, I fucked that up. I fucked it up.
New Babymetal. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it might be helpful for you to bring on someone, some weeaboo who could shed some context into what the hell a Babymetal is. You know, someone who looks like he'd listen to Babymetal coming on the show.
Let me redo that whole intro.
Okay.
So okay, let me redo that whole thing. The transition, and here we are with a Babymetal review.
Yes,
with my dude Digibro. We're going to be exploring this album via the magic of the internet here with a Google Hangout. How you doing, man?
I am doing great. I'm glad to be here, to be your resident weeaboo and help to explain what Babymetal is.
Everything's been going good since the podcast. We that podcast with you, it went over really well. And
yeah,
since then,
I was accused of cutting you off a lot, so I'm going to try to let you finish your sentences this time.
You're completely fine. That podcast was about you. That podcast was titled "Over You."
Yeah, so, that's how I felt about it too. So
you can interrupt all you want in that context. If you interrupt me here, I will kill you. So don't even think about it. Don't even think about disagreeing with me either. So
don't worry.
I'm here to reinforce every single thing I think it'd say. So
alrighty.
Okay. But before I get into your thoughts on this record, you're a fan of this project, I imagine. You approached me wondering if I had heard the record, if I was planning on reviewing the record, and I assume that sort of came from some kind of enthusiasm you have.
Enthusiasm might be a good word. I don't know if fan is. I'm very interested in this project, like in the fact that it's getting so big in like a worldwide way. Like I think this might be like the biggest act out of Japan right now. Like they're playing shows all over the world, touring the United States. They just did a show on Colbert's show the other night. So I'm more excited about this from the perspective of like this weeaboo anime guy who, you know, sees a lot of Japanese bands and sees a lot of bands of this nature, these sort of idol group type things, and like would never have expected one to be on American television, you know. So I don't know if I'm a fan of their music per se. I like some of their songs, but I'm definitely interested in how far this project has come and the reactions of people like you, like music critics in the US. I'm extremely curious about how you would feel about this album.
At first, it was kind of interesting to see people kind of simultaneously recoil at what they were doing.
Right.
While also there was another group of people that just thought it was the greatest thing to ever happen in the history of music. And I kind of feel like I avoided their debut record simply because avoided reviewing it, that is, because it just kind of felt like it wasn't something that was genuine as much as it was just kind of created and masterminded to elicit those kinds of reactions. But this time around, it seems like the surprise factor is kind of gone, and now people can kind of judge it and listen to it for what it really is. It's not like this weird, surprising thing anymore. You know, sort of what Babymetal is setting out to do. It's very kind of clear and very obvious at this point. So, you know, they're not going to be hitting you with that left hook on this new record. So I figured I would kind of give it a shot. And also my decision to review this was also because of a lot of what you just said. It doesn't just seem to kind of be a one-trick pony or, you know, a gimmick that's kind of here and it's gone. With this new sophomore album over here, the group has sort of seemed to just hold on to some kind of legitimacy. It seems like a lot of people who enjoyed their debut record you know, didn't just kind of think of it as this passing joke and thought, you know, actually, I kind of want to hear this again. You know, I could go for another round of this.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the feeling of it being like manufactured and everything, because that's like what I find the most interesting about the project coming to the US, especially that it's a metal project. Because I know you and your taste in metal is generally more like you tend to like stuff that's very raw and like feels like it's very, the guys needed to make this. It's like something that had to be created, something like very original. And this is like the opposite of that, almost the antithesis of that. It's totally manufactured and put together. And I think that here in the US, like we kind of have a stigma against like manufactured pop stars where, you know, people who are really into music tend to be like, I can't stand all that design by committee stuff, you know, and they try to hide it pretty well. People who are like Lady Gaga fans, for instance, will always say like, she writes her own music and that's what makes her special. It's like, she writes her own lyrics. She doesn't like compose the sounds, you know, but there's like such a worship of that. And I think in Japan, there's not really that much of a stigma in that way. And this band comes very much from Japanese idol culture, which is like, where they just find young girls, like talent agencies all over Japan, just finding young girls, putting them in groups together and making them sing, you know, and there's like hundreds of idol groups in Japan. It's such a huge like market. And, you know, all the girls in Babymetal were originally just regular idols, like from like when they were in middle school, like the lead singer, all three of them started when they were 11. And they were like 14 by the time, not even 14, like what? 13 or something by the time Babymetal started. They're a bunch of children, you know, but they've sort of already become like seasoned idols. And then obviously some music composers, some Japanese metal composers who wanted to write some songs and slap some cute girls on them were like, hey, let's put this band together. And like, that seems kind of normal for a Japanese band. So then to see the US react to it so positively is, definitely reflects like a changing of the way people think about like extreme music or, you know, metal music. Like, you know, the kinds of guys who I expect to be at metal shows are the guys who are like, yeah, I liked them back before they were cool, you know. And then here we have you couldn't have liked them before they were cool because it was designed by committee to be cool.
Everything in your room just got really dark and really red all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. I don't know what happened. Sun
like everything just got really devilish just all of a sudden.
I don't know why.
Okay, well,
it's very strange.
I think I think the reason they've taken off over here is for several different reasons. I mean, as much as American music acts do try to avoid sort of that look and that feel of being manufactured, I do think that you know, Westerners enjoy a novelty every now and then. Especially the metal scene. You know, even though metalheads do take metal seriously, they're always down for a good joke too.
Yeah.
You know?
Metal Sucks is the name of one of the biggest metal sites.
Exactly. You know, they're into good, tasteful metal satire. And I think your average metal fan can pick up on the artistry and the technical ability that goes into a lot of the production behind these songs, because there's certainly some really flashy guitar soloing and playing and compositional work, going into these tracks, even if they are topped with these, sort of Japanese idol singers. So there's definitely an element of artistry to these tracks. And I think instrumentally, a general music fan, not even a metalhead, would pick up on some of the quirks and the personality and the intentional comedy that comes up in some of these tracks. I mean, there's one cut here that I marked down, the song GJ, exclamation point, where there's a lone cowbell hit that just in the middle of the track, just like all the guitars, all the vocals, everything is silent. And for that split second, there's a dunk, and then they go right back into the thunderous riffs.
I didn't even notice that, but that's fantastic.
Well, did you catch on the song, what is it? Takes of Destinies or something?
Tales of the Destinies, I think.
Yes. That track, all of a sudden there's that weird jazzy piano break that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
I might have. Yeah.
So there are some elements of, I think, a little tongue-in-cheek humor here. Yeah. I mean, it seems like these guys know metal and they appreciate metal and they understand metal, but they know that they're not making a serious metal project. So as a result, it seems like they're trying to have as much fun with it as they can. It's not like a serious metal album. And as a result, I think it works.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing too is that a lot of the people who are like the songwriters on this are like, this is their more mainstream sounding stuff. Like, because I know that one of the lead writers on for this band is the main guy from Koltar of the Deepers, which is like a long running shoegaze band that was always super experimental. All their albums sound totally different from both each other and anything else I've ever heard, really. And that guy also did, for my anime fans out there who'll probably be the only ones who know what I'm talking about, there's an anime series called Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, and it had this really bizarre like metal album tie-in where they had all the voice actresses for the show like sing over these really heavy metal songs, and they had the singer Otsuki Kenji, who is from like some more legendary Japanese metal bands, like, doing like shouted vocals while these girls are backing him up. That album's a lot more experimental than the Babymetal stuff. It's more like Koltar of the Deepers sound, but I highly recommend it, especially if you're into Babymetal. Look up the album Kaku Renbo from Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei. But like, so this guy's done this kind of thing before, where he's worked with like having like cute girl singers over his music, and then like some of the Babymetal songs, you can definitely hear his influence. I would say track 3 on here. Let me look up the name real quick. Awadama Fever.
Awadama Fever.
That one sounds very like Koltar of the Deeper sounding. And that one actually though is like co-written by the bassist from Mad Capsule Markets, who are a sort of popular again long-running Japanese metal band that's very experimental. So like, yeah, it's almost like these guys, they know the genre so inside and out that like this is them like on their relaxed day, and they're just like, they could just jam out some really structured like pop metal, as opposed to the kind of weird experimental shit that they would get up to in their own time.
Yeah. And I mean, the production is super tight, and even though it does feel manufactured and it is really poppy, the music excuse me, the music is really visceral. I mean, the guitar riffs and the drums all have a really great groove to them. So it is kind of an exciting, very physical listen. And I think the vocals topped onto a lot of these tracks add a really nice element of metal, add a nice element of melody, right, to these just really, I don't know, some of these riffs have kind of a new metal feel to them.
Yeah, I would definitely say Karate is like a new metal. It sounds like 2002,
Yeah, it's like, like when I hear some of these new metal riffs, I do kind of wince a little bit because it reminds me of like, hey, what up? Get down with the secrets.
I know how much you hate Disturbed.
Man. So. Disturbed is just like my least favorite new metal band. But also like a little bit of "Wake Me Up Inside." There's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, it's a little new metal. It also reminds me a little bit of like metalcore sometimes.
It's definitely got a metalcore thing going on, like some 2000s metalcore, and a little bit of like "Let the bodies hit the floor," like that kind of shit too, like some "Jump the fuck up," like kind of riffs pop up here and there. I believe I can't remember. It might have even been on AWADAMA Fever, where there's even like this lone vocal that pops up in there. It's like, yo, like,
yeah,
so overboard. Sometimes it's just so overboard. But there are parts here where I feel like they do something completely just off their rocker. No, it wasn't AWADAMA Fever. AWADAMA Fever was a track that I liked for another reason. That was the track that had the break beats in the background.
Yes, the amen break all over the place.
Which is often like metal guitars and break beats, usually a combo I stay far, far away from. But sort of in this context of this weird J-pop nu metal fusion, I think it kind of worked, because at least in my head I was like, yeah, this is about like the level of seriousness that I think these kinds of guitar riffs should be allotted. Yeah. So in the context of this kind of fun, melodic, catchy novelty metal album, I thought it worked. And on the song YAVA, you had kind of those upstroked ska guitars in the mix.
That was very odd. Yeah.
Coming. So again, part of the reason I think this album might get a pass in the metal community is there are some like really weird, eccentric, quirky risks and ideas that they take in the instrumentation here. That if you're listening past the manufactured element of the album, the singers, the look of the singers, and I guess the aesthetic of the project and the group, there's some interesting things going on.
Yeah, although I would say with this album, I feel like it's a lot more focused on being like a metal album, where Babymetal 1, which I haven't listened to as many times, but like it had a lot more of that like pushing the idol element. Like their first big track, which was Doki Doki Morning from like late 2011, was like super going between like metal and then like totally idol, and just having these really poppy moments. It was sort of like a Maximum the Hormone type thing. I don't know if you've ever listened to them, but
I've heard them before. People have recommended them to me quite a few times, and they're pretty wild.
I'm a big fan of them, of their Buiki Kaisu album. But in any case, like I kind of like that sound the most. Like my favorite Babymetal song is like Gimme Chocolate, where it's very like focused on this being this like weird cute girls singing over metal thing, because I think that is a sound we don't have a lot of in existence already, where like that's what makes it so like jarring and interesting and unique. Whereas with this, I turned red again. But with this album, more of it is like straight up just metal songs that have a female vocal on them, like as opposed to being an idol song over a metal song. It's just a metal song with a cute girl who happens to be the singer. It feels like it's more power metal than before as well.
Definitely. I think those power metal moments, those moments where the project does kind of sound like a little Dragon Force influenced, or kind of like Iron Maiden on steroids.
Well, the first song is Dragon Force. Herman Lee and Sam Topman are both on it.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of my favorite tracks. That track, AMORE, and the song No Rain, No Rainbow. These are three of the most melodic tracks on the record. I mean, No Rain, No Rainbow isn't even really truly a metal song until the very end of the track. Up until that point, it just kind of feels like a Japanese pop ballad, because it is just very vocal driven. There aren't really any electric guitars making their presence known until this really bright melodic solo after like a verse and a chorus or so. These tracks are some of my favorites. To me, they're some of the most tasteful on the record. But then once we get into some of those more nu metal infused tracks, like I can go either way. Sometimes they go over really well. Sometimes they just seem kind of gross to me, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. And then there's but those aren't even really like. Also, I do want to make note of the song "Cis Anger," which I sort of wonder if that's kind of a take on Metallica's "Saint Anger."
I was wondering that too. I think that's probably what it's in reference to.
I mean, the track did seem like it had kind of a thrashy element to it. Yeah. So I could have seen that being the case. It's almost as if with the last record, they saw quite a bit of success, so they had more leeway to just like go crazier and have more fun and take more risks and just make this album more metal, you know? Even though it seemed like the last album was more of an idol album. It seems like they really kind of turned up the metal elements on this record, whether it be because of a personal artistic desire or to just kind of enhance the fact that this project is all about really just two worlds kind of clashing here, you know? So let's make this record metal as fuck as we continue to have these Japanese pop singers on top. And then there are a couple other tracks that to me were maybe my least favorites. The song Metataro.
Metataro is very weird, and I feel like it would have been cute as like a 2-minute song, but it goes on for a while, and it just gets really old.
Well, to me, the reason the track failed is because it's literally it's like a Norwegian folk metal song.
Yeah,
it's an epic, grand folk metal tune that I could hear. I don't know, some band like Korpiklani playing. For example. And I'm not really a big folk metal fan to begin with. But for this project, it seemed like they were even more off the mark than I would have anticipated. But obviously, that was kind of their nod to that. And then the track from Dusk Till Dawn, that was maybe my other least favorite as well, because I just didn't really care for the electronic fusion.
I actually didn't get to hear that one because if you don't have a paid Spotify account, that song doesn't show up for some reason. I don't know why.
I noticed the same thing on Apple Music, and I have a paid Apple Music account. I needed to like pick the song up on iTunes to hear the full version of the song, which was
there's like 5 different versions of this album, like depending on what country it's released in, which is a very like Japanese thing to do, but very weird in the modern internet age to have like the UK version has like 6 different songs and the American version of this. Well, they're not literally 6 different, but like I'm looking at the list right now, and there's like the standard edition has a song called Syncopation, which is replaced by From Dusk Till Dawn on the Out of Japan edition. And then there's the song The One on the Out of Japan version is all in English, whereas the original has like Japanese vocals in it, which you can find the original on their YouTube page. I think it's a little bit better. Just the lyrics sound better in
I felt that same way too. The song The One, just kind of listening to the English lyric version, it didn't really do all that much for me. Yeah. Not only because I didn't really care for the lyrics that much, but I just feel like just having these songs sung in Japanese just adds to the character of the project.
Yeah. That Metataro, though, like, when I was listening to it, I couldn't shake this feeling that it, like, I expected, because I went to look up a live version of this, like, after hearing it, because I was so confused by it, and I was like, I'm going to be really disappointed if a giant Metataro doesn't like come out onto the stage, because I was picturing it as like Guar's Gorgor, where at the start of the song they're like Gorgor, and then it comes out of the
the song does have kind of those huge like chanting Viking vocals.
When they're singing Metataro, I'm like, this is a summoning song. They're trying to bring him up from the depths, but that's not the case, unfortunately. I tried to like look up what this song is about. Some people think it's in reference to an Ultraman character named like Ultrataro, but I don't know. It seems unlikely to me, so I have no idea what it is.
So what were a couple of tracks that to you were like your favorites, totally standouts, highlights on the record?
I would definitely say Awadama Fever was my favorite, because again...
Oh, your microphone cut out again for some reason. Bringing it back. He's going to bring it back.
All right. I'm going to sound different, but it's okay.
That's fine. So, Awadama Fever, why did that track stick out?
Yeah. Like the use of the weird break beats and everything, again, is very Koltar of the Deepers. He actually has used that same Amen break, but instead of a metal song, it was a shoegaze song, like a really bizarre shoegaze song that had growling vocals on it for some reason on the Penguin EP. But it's so weird and like totally different. And whereas a lot of Babymetal songs, again, I feel like are just kind of generic metal songs with baby singing on it. Awadama Fever does not sound like something you'd find on a normal metal album.
Yeah.
Besides that, I don't know, Road of Resistance is like an okay song, but it gives me such a Dragon Force vibe, and I don't want to think about Dragon Force. I have a long, terrible history with Dragon Force, so
a long, terrible history with Dragon Force. Well,
yeah.
I don't have such a checkered past when it comes to Dragon Force. I could sort of tolerate them for a little bit, but I think they just sort of push it a little too far. However, if something is Dragon Force-ish, and I feel like, I guess they're not sort of pushing those speed metal guitars to the point where I want to throw up, then I can enjoy it. I don't see Dragon Force as so much a style as much as they're just pulling a style from many other metal groups I already know, and they're just kind of taking all of those elements and speeding them up and sort of making them flashier and even more technical to the point where I can't even digest it. Babymetal, obviously, though I wouldn't call them generic on this new record, the productions, they definitely seem like they're putting in more effort, more detail. And while it is Dragon Force inspired, they definitely pulled a lot of influence from that. They didn't push it so far that it doesn't become like a pop record. It's still a pop tune.
I just think that with Road of Resistance, I think what it's missing is like a really strong power metal hook where you'd get like, again, I'm not into Dragon Force because of a checkered past with them, but like I'm a huge fan of the Japanese band Galnerius, who are sort of along these lines as well. They're another very technical power metal band, not quite as like blistering as Dragon Force, and all their songs don't sound exactly the same. But this I think with power metal, like having a big, strong, memorable hook is like a big part of that genre, and also having like a 6-minute guitar solo, which this song is missing as well. But overall, I think it's a pretty okay song. I'd say my second favorite though is YAVA. That one's just a lot of fun, and I like the hook on that one, and the random screaming YAVA, like the girls just randomly out of nowhere going YAVA, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, they had like a lot of weird, quirky vocal moments on this thing, especially on those tracks that had like the just like the groaning nu metal riffs. It seems like over those riffs, like on tracks like Karate, they would just have them do the strangest vocal stuff. Yeah. It's just like so unmetal.
They're just yelling like "Sore! Sore!" Yeah, that's very Idol. That just having random. It's almost like a hip hop hype man, like someone just yelling like "yo, yo" in the background. Like that's the Idol version of that.
Okay, what to you were some of the low points on the record, like songs that you just could not stand?
Metataro is definitely the one I had to skip.
I'm glad we agree on that. I'm glad we agree that's like a serious low point on the record.
I didn't like No Rain, No Rainbow, and really? The reason I didn't I think my biggest problem with like this album and with Babymetal in general, because this was true of their first album too, is that like I just see it as, and maybe this is a problem I have with pop music in general, but like the layout of the album is so like open with the big epic song, go right into the big single, and then have a big dumb power ballad towards the end, and then end on like another epic song. And like No Rain, No Rainbow just feels very token to me of like we had to have the power ballad, the sad one, and so here it is.
You gotta put the soft songs at the end, dude.
Right, and like that's for me on every metal album, that's the one I skip. The random song, unless it's like really great. I actually do think like Dragon Force's first album managed to have like a power ballad that I remember being like super memorable, but although I don't remember it now, so I guess it's not that memorable, but it has been like 10 years since I listened to them. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I was just like, oh, here we go. It's true. As
far as the structuring of the record, it's very blueprint. I mean, they weren't trying to really do anything different. No. But I mean, I guess it's sort of, I don't know. It sort of comes with the territory of, I think, being the novelty project, being the novelty album that it is.
Yeah.
They're not going to try to do anything super weird or abstract or unexpected, because ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a very pop, it's a very commercial project. I would actually say, despite the very cliched sequencing of this record. Again, instrumentally and production-wise, I'm surprised they got away with as much as they did with this record, considering that, you know, again, it's an idol project. It's a pop record. It's a commercial record. In a way, it's a novelty album. But then they were still able to work in, I mean, even though it's not a great track, it's my least favorite track, I do appreciate how weird the song Metataro is.
Yeah. I agree. Like when I heard it, I was like, it's really cool that this is on here. It's just not a good song. And it should have been like 2 minutes long. It's another thing with Japanese like pop music is that I don't know what it is with Japan, but their pop songs are always like 4 to 5 minutes long. They're never like we're in the US, you expect a pop song to be like 2.5 to 3 minutes usually, and it's like the total opposite over there. They're always like full 1.5-minute verse chorus, then a repeat of that, and then another chorus, and you end up with like 4.5 minutes. And a lot of them, you're just like, you could cut so much from this, and it would be fine. Metataro could be 2 minutes long, and it'd be adorable. Instead, it's like a trial.
Yeah, it is like a little bit of a trial. So, yeah, I mean, I do appreciate that song is on the record because it is a really weird moment. It's something I'm surprised that they were able to incorporate into the album. You know, but there are other spots that I'm surprised they were able to incorporate, and I enjoy them, like the break beats on AWADAMA Fever, like the ska guitars on YAVA, like the very heavy thrash riffs on Sis Anger. And honestly, I guess I enjoy No Rain, No Rainbow as just a ballad. Like, I think it has some really sweet melodies, even though they are a little cliched. And I suppose it adds to the variety of the album. Yeah, again, its addition is kind of predictable, but it's still one of my favorite tunes on here. And I guess, again, it's kind of a track that to me is de facto enjoyable because it doesn't have all those growly nu metal riffs on it. So, you know, like I'm not having my adolescence haunt me as I'm listening to that song, because I'm not like, you know, listening to this album or listening to a certain track here and having like Slipknot concert flashbacks.
I definitely think that starting riff on Karate, like, really, like, it reminds me of his Edema. Do you remember Edema?
Yes.
Yeah, it like really brought me back to Edema. Like, but I have like an ironic appreciation for the early 2000s because I was a kid, so I don't have to like remember being angsty and teenage. I can just be like, yeah, all the songs kicked ass to me back then, you know.
Like that band, there were moments on this record that kind of reminded me of like maybe a little Linkin Park or some Slipknot or like Saliva or something. Like every bad post grunge and nu metal band that I liked for a minute and then hated as soon as I like turned 17,
right,
and got into other kinds of music. Like every one of those bands, like I was reminded of on this project. But again, because of its novelty and its self-awareness and its kind of tongue-in-cheek attitude, I think it gets away with it at least a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like you were saying, how you're surprised what they got away with, and like, you know, from the perspective of like, I listen to weird music, nothing on here is that shocking. But from the perspective of this was just performed on Colbert's show, it's like, whoa, this is like mainstream music doing something this out there. I don't know if you know this, that Babymetal opened for Lady Gaga for like 5 shows on her tour, which I was really upset by because I actually saw Lady Gaga. I saw her when she had Hatsune Miku on the East Coast, which Hatsune Miku is another fun, weird Japanese act thing, but I would have loved to see Babymetal instead. And I was like, how the West Coast, you bastards, you know?
All right. What were your thoughts on this record overall? I mean, did you enjoy it as a whole, would you say?
I can't see myself listening to this whole album like in the future. I could see myself just taking the tracks that I like and listening to them. Babymetal for me has always been like the 5 or so best songs are great. And I find this kind of like 12-track, hour-long pop metal thing exhausting to listen to. So like for me, if I want like, hey, I'm in the mood for Babymetal, I need like 3 YouTube clicks, and then I'm like satiated. You know, like, yeah, I got Gimme Chocolate, I got maybe AWADAMA Fever, and like a little karate, and then I can just go on with my day. You know.
Yeah, it's not really anything I need to hear a full album of either. Though I could see myself coming back to this record if maybe like 4 tracks had been cut from it.
Yeah.
I think if 4 tracks had been cut from it, I could enjoy it from beginning to end as at least a novelty. Right. You know, I mean, there's still a great deal of moments that I'm just like, just like, you know, like my former nu metal self is crying on the inside.
Yeah. I also wanted to
crawling in.
I'm like 10 when that song came out. I was a huge Linkin Park fan back then, but I don't feel as guilty about it because I was really young and I wasn't like angsty with the lyrics. I just thought it sounded cool because it was heavy, you know. But I wanted to talk about another band that sort of sprung up as a result of Babymetal called Lady Baby, who is kind of the same concept, but what they've done instead is it's like idol mixed with metal, but the 3 idols are 2 little girls and 1 giant bearded Australian white man who's dressed as a little girl, who's like a professional wrestler dressed as a girl, but with a full beard, and he's doing the screaming vocals. So it'll go between like full idol, and then he'll come on and just be like, oh my god, and like, and the songs are great. So, like, for me, Lady Baby has kind of taken Babymetal and done, like, what I wished they would do with it, which is, like, really emphasize the idol and metal fusion aspect, and they made it more like I don't know, it's almost... I don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of like this, but more pushing the weird angle. You know, having a giant bearded white guy dressed as a little girl dancing with 2 little girls. They only have like 4 songs out, but I've liked all of them. So check them out if you're into Babymetal. Give Lady Baby a try as well.
And you want to see this kind of concept further mutated.
Yeah, it's just gone to the next extreme.
I mean, I enjoyed the album, but it's definitely kind of a passing infatuation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'll definitely check out what Babymetal do next because I know I'll get a giggle out of it and a few hummable melodies out of it and maybe just a little bit of nu metal nostalgia, you know. But there were probably like, you know, maybe only 3 tracks on here that I think I genuinely liked as metal and as pop songs, whereas many of the other cuts, while I may have enjoyed them slightly, or I may have just like kind of liked elements to them, I still couldn't help but feel like, this is just kind of gimmicky, you know. Like, it's a fun gimmick, and it's a gimmick that it seems like, you know, there's definitely like a lot of technical know-how behind, but it's just kind of like, you know, it was just very kind of quick chewing gum flavor loss.
I think this is more of a. I think this is a band that'll be more fun live, and I might go see them live because my cousin's like a really big fan of Babymetal, so he's like, let's drive all the way up to DC 4 hours to go see Babymetal, and I'm like, I got nothing better to do because like I feel like seeing it with the cute girls on stage, and like I just really want a mosh pit. I really want to mosh to Babymetal because like if I die in a Babymetal mosh pit, I'll know I like lived my life, like, you know, I died as I lived essentially. So
when you go to the concert, give me your password and everything to your YouTube channel so that I can upload
an obituary
video.
Yeah, I'll be sure to do that. So what are you going to score this?
I'll put this clip up there.
What are you going to score this album here?
I thought you were going to ask me what I was going to score your death.
Oh, no.
If you died in a Babymetal mosh pit, I would score your death a 10 out of 10.
Oh, that's great. Me too.
But this album itself, I'm probably going to score a decent to strong 6. I did get some enjoyment out of it. It's a fun record. It's, you know, a novelty album. Don't expect too much from it, you know, other than a laugh. But you know, they kind of want you to laugh. You know, they want you to have fun to it. And the guys who are producing it are clearly having fun doing it. You know, there are some moments that are incredibly that are in very bad taste. I'm not sure if some tracks over here they wanted to go over as badly as they wanted them to. But overall, I still think those tracks were at least kind of interesting to gawk at while they were on. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts in general about
I'd give it a light to decent 5 myself, just because, like, as much as I love the concept and again to gawk at it, like you said, or even sometimes to just enjoy it, I think the fact that I can't see myself like listening to this all the way through ever again, like I kind of had to make myself do it to make this review. Like I would get tired around halfway through the album and be like, okay, I gotta finish it because I gotta talk about every song, and then so yeah, I can't give it above a 5 knowing that.
Look at you! You're such a picky critic.
Yeah, it's true.
You're a tough critic, dude.
I'm glad you seemed to enjoy the album, because I thought maybe that my 5 was still gonna be me playing defense for this album. I wasn't sure if you were gonna totally hate it or not. So,
I feel like it's something that if you're really cynical, it's super easy to hate it. And I feel like it was easy for me to, and you might have seen me tweet about this. I like put up a picture of the page where I was listening to the album, and I was like, Jesus, give me strength.
Yeah, that's why I requested to be on. I because I first responded to that tweet, and I was like, if you need a weeaboo to help with this, just give me a call, because like, I felt like I had to, like, you needed someone there to be next to you to like reassure you that this makes sense in some universe,
like I feel like it was easier to hate it when I hadn't heard it, know. But then after I listened to it, I was like, okay, it's a gimmick, yes, like that I had already understood. But then once I started listening to the production and I started listening to some of those weird instrumental quirks, and I started to pick up some of the stuff that they were blatantly referencing in metal music, I was like, okay, these guys are in on the joke. They're not just like, maybe I would have felt that way about their last record, but it didn't feel like they were just kind of blatantly ripping off metal music to make a buck. It felt like they enjoyed metal, and it felt like they were doing their best to make some interesting instrumental bits here and put together some tight, very visceral production, while still kind of holding true to the demand for this record to be sort of the Japanese pop album that it needs to be. Yeah. So it was a balancing act that I don't think always went over well on here. But I think, they came out with their heads up for the most part, and it's a mostly entertaining album.
Alrighty. Well, that was a long-ass review, so we should.
It was a long-ass review. This is a weird-ass project, so it's worth an intensive discussion, I think.
I agree.
All right, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate your appearance over here. We will link your YouTube channel down there in the description, where, if you didn't already know, you can catch some pretty in-depth anime reviews and think pieces from Mr. Digibro over here. And yeah, you the best. You're the best.
Might be dropping a couple rap mixtapes soon as well, so check those out.
God.
Head on over to my SoundCloud, Digibro on SoundCloud. I got some songs coming out.
We'll do a co-review of that too. We'll have you review your own music with me.
Oh, that'll be awful.
All right, Anthony Fantano, Digibro, Babymetal, forever.